Here's your presentation. Beautiful. Okay. So now that we've gone through technical things, hello everyone. Thank you for coming. This is our, we just finished our first year of the Career Speaker Series. So yay, first anniversary. Woo, everyone cheers, please. Yay! Cool. Yay. So thank you for coming again. Today we have Daryl Pfeif, and let me get this correct. The founder and CEO of Digital Forensic Solutions, Digital Security Associates, and the Cybersleuth Science Lab, COO, and founding member of the Digital Forensics Research Conference. She's here today to talk to us about digital forensics. So just to give you an idea of like how this works, we do a 20-20-20 format. So there'll be about 20-minute presentation. Daryl will entertain you and tell you all the glamorous things about digital forensics. You'll have a great time. And then we're gonna have a 20 minutes of Q&A. I'll lead it because we have a traditional 3 questions we ask, and then it'll be opened up. Y'all can, shoot out stuff if you want. We'll have the virtual people, because we got it working. They will also have the chance to speak up. And then there's a 20-minute kind of, not reception because that implies food, but kind of the one-on-one, not free-for-all even, but let's say free-for-all, where if you're too shy to be like, oh, me, I have a question, you can kind of, one-on-one it. So without further ado, here's Daryl.
Great, thank you. Good morning. My name is Daryl. And I am going to talk to you a little bit about digital forensics, but just much more about technology and where you might be able to take that and just give you a little bit idea of some of the things that I've done and know and love. So, and I'm going to cover a lot in 20 minutes. So are you with me? Mm-hmm. You ready? Okay, so let's go. All right, so we already went through that. I'm sure that everyone in this room has some idea of what digital forensics is, right? Have you had any training in digital forensics? Do you know what digital forensics is?
Haven't had any training yet, but.
Okay, so just throw it out there. Come on. What is digital forensics? You can have any candy you want. Or whatever. Who's going to guess? What is digital forensics?
Tracking down hackers.
Tracking down hackers. That is one of the things that you can do in digital forensics. So really, it's very, very broad. Digital forensics is the examination of digital evidence. This is a traditional definition of this, but really what we're looking at is digital artifacts and digital evidence. So why didn't I say computer forensics? Right. 20 years ago when I, started, most of it was computers. I mean, we didn't have smartphones, right? Now almost every investigation I do is a phone. What else do we have? Where? Laptops, computers. What else?
Consoles.
Game consoles, right? What else? Tablets, absolutely. Where else might I find digital evidence?
Pretty much the overall Internet of Things, right?
Any Internet of Things, right? People are buying Alexas. What else do you buy that's connected?
Ring doorbells.
Doorbells, Zoom doorbells, absolutely. What else? Come on.
Cameras.
TVs, cameras. What else? Cars, black boxes and airplanes. Apple Watches, absolutely. All kinds of stuff in Apple Watches and Fitbits, and you going with me here, right? Okay. So this is the number. This is just phones. 5 billion phones. If you can just imagine how much data is on your phone, you take that phone with you, it literally knows who you've called, where who you've texted, where you've been, what videos you watch. I mean, everything is in your phone. And it's not just phones. Literally, everywhere you go, there's cameras, there's smart boards, there's networks, there's apps. Every app you use, who's got apps on their phone? right? Everybody's got apps on their phone, right? So when you start thinking about what is digital forensics, what is security, these are the things you need to be thinking about, because pretty much if you're going to go out there and look for work, you can find work in pretty much any of these areas. So, you know, as you're developing your skills, I want you to start thinking about that. Here are some very current events in terms of where digital forensics is having a real impact on our world, our day-to-day world, where this forensic type of analysis impacts you. So just about every day you will see another company that's had their password stolen or identity stolen. The digital forensics people are typically the people that come in after the fact. We come in after an event has happened and we use digital artifacts to reconstruct what happened in that event. And when we can, we're trying to figure out, we're trying to recreate the process. What happened? Who got that data? Where did it go?
You also test, right? Like test for vulnerabilities and systems?
Well, absolutely. But that kind of falls under the cybersecurity or incident response, or so typically a digital forensic analysis is really, I mean, the word forensics means to the court. So very, very often it is in litigation support, and that does not mean criminal. Most of, I don't do criminal work generally, but you know, it's corporations, great big huge corporations. Almost every major corporation now has their own digital forensics team internally, and they're looking at all kinds of things. The security is more proactive.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're really starting to do is like test things for vulnerabilities. When you're doing incident response, you're using digital forensics, but you're kind of recreating the scene. You may not know, I mean, so much of the crime, the cyber crime that happens, somebody's coming in from another country. We don't have extradition treaties. We don't know who they are. It's like random, anomalous people, and you're just trying to secure the system. Any questions?
I do. Being that you have airplanes on there, I'm just thinking about the incident where the accident happened with Kobe Bryant, and the chopper he was on didn't have a black box.
Yeah.
Do you think that digital forensics is going to play a part in
100%. I have a colleague that that's what they do. They are a digital forensics expert for aviation. Every time, you know, every time there's an incident that happens with a plane, somebody has to look at the black box. That's digital evidence. Those are digital artifacts.
That chopper didn't have one.
Well, they're probably, what they're going to do then is go look at those phones, because I bet somebody in that helicopter had an iPhone, and those iPhones now, they have accelerometers in them. There's all kinds of data in those phones. I mean, the moment somebody has an accident, they're looking at the phone, right? I mean, so really, as a digital forensics person, you put on your sleuth hat and you try to figure out, okay, here's my question. What happened? What happened in that accident, right? And then you're going to go look for the digital evidence that would help you reconstruct that story. Does that make sense? And so once you start thinking about it that way, it's really hard to unsee the digital evidence piece, and you'll see it every day. And really, yeah. And more. When I first started in the space, people were like, "Did you what? Digital what? Did you have a question?"
Part about texting, right? So the iPhones have accelerometers and all that kind of stuff. They can probably go in there and figure out the time that you texted, the exact time of your accident, and pin that accident on you. So that's something, you know, to think about as well.
Because it was said that Shaq's son had texted him that morning before the accident happened. So probably they'll look at his phone, like his son's phone.
So in situations,
Shaq's son texted Kobe Bryant that morning
About
the accident. They were just texting. They were
Oh, was
texting each other.
Shaq's son on the,
No, Shaq's son is friends with Kobe Bryant.
right,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
Right. I'm just saying that they'll probably look at his phone.
Yeah.
They're looking for forensics.
Well, so a lot of times, again, when you're doing an investigation, when somebody comes to me with a problem, they come to me with a problem, right? It's up to me to help them figure out, you know, can I even solve this with digital forensics? Would there be evidence there? And for us as a technology community, it's incredibly important that you understand the importance of evidence, that evidence is handled properly. Because if you're going to then attribute, you know, particularly from forensics, if you're going to attribute an action to somebody, you better be sure that that evidence has been handled properly and that you know that what you're suggesting that evidence says is what it means. So it's incredibly important. It's very heartwarming to me to see that Delgado is aware of this and that there's a program here and there's just a tremendous amount of opportunity. So I want to talk about some of those things and where you can take this, and just again some of the things that I've learned. And then when we get into the Q&A, you can ask me more specific questions about what it is I do. I've done many things. Literally, I have been paid to break into banks, legitimately by the banks. I have done multinational investigations for large companies. I have done super small data recovery projects. Literally, somebody came to me because you know, they had lost all of their family photos. They had digitized them right before the storm. They lost all their photos in the storm, and the only place they had like literally 100 years of family photos was on a hard drive, and I needed to recover that data. So there's a tremendous amount of variety in terms of how it's applied and what you can do. And this illustrates it. So you can't maybe see this, but these are all of the places that you can go in terms of this. These are just entire areas where you can specialize in forensics and security. You probably can't see them in detail, but this is just, I mean, and this is like a partial list. So, yeah. Sorry, moving pretty quickly. I broke it into these big categories. So information technology and assurance. Really, this is protection and regulation. There isn't a company, you know, from literally like your 1-2 person mom and pop up to your multinational company that doesn't need protection and regulation. I mean, really, everybody needs this. Cybersecurity is more proactive. So what we're really trying to do is get ahead of the game, and we do that by training awareness and prevention, right? It's really the best cybersecurity is proactive. And then digital forensics, again, very much after the fact, we're going back, we're trying to reconstruct what happened using digital evidence. Any questions about that? That's all pretty, you've been over that a bunch. So these are some of the things that I've really am working on a new project. It's called the Cybersleuth Science Lab. And it is because there is such a need for people in this space, and I'm reaching out to students in high school. And I had to ask myself this question: how did I go down this path? What do I do? And I find it's a really important question. So I pulled up some of my heroes in this space. I'm sure many of you have heard of Josephine Baker. Do you know of Josephine Baker? She was mostly known as a performer, but she literally was one of the top intelligence agents and incredibly crucial in much of our success in World War II. So that, of course, wasn't known at the time, but came out later. She's an amazing and fascinating person, and you can check her out online. This man basically was so very responsible for the founding of the CIA, and worked in the intelligence community. He was the first African American to receive a Nobel Prize. Just another just amazing human being. Check him out. Bruce Schneier is one of the top bloggers in cybersecurity. I highly recommend reading his blog. He's really keen on privacy, and he is very much behind the EFF, which is, I think, a pretty interesting organization. And Heather Mihalik is on my board. She's kind of a colleague and somebody that I really admire. She's training, she's doing work, she's rides horses, she's, you know, just doing all sorts of things. And you can find out a lot about her. She also is a great person to follow. She has a blog. She shares a lot of her research online. And this is just a small sample. But as you're starting to think about, you know, where you're going, what you want to do, I highly encourage you to find people who are doing stuff that seems interesting and ask them questions. How did you do that? What do you do? How did you get there? Most people will be honored that you are interested. So as I go on, I want you to just start thinking about these ideas. And I don't know how many of you are working already. Are you full-time students? So a couple of you, okay? Yeah. So when you're in school, right, you're going to learn some amazing skills, but it's going to be really up to you. You saw that how many places you can take this, right? I mean, so many places. So as you're developing your skills, really start thinking about some of these questions. Like, where do you want to work, right? And how would you know if you hadn't tried it? I personally worked in all of these different venues. I worked for a great big huge government agency. I worked for a small nonprofit. I worked for a bunch of different types of environments to figure out a lot more about who I was and the kind of work I like to do. Because I'm telling you, you will be working a lot, and there's no reason why you wouldn't love what you do. So, but these are questions, I can't answer these for you, right? Nobody, your teachers, like nobody can answer these questions. Like this is like literally you sitting with yourself and going like, you know, there's no right answer here. It's really what's important to you. What environment do you want to be in? What kind of work do you want to do? Technology is all about solving problems. So figure out the kind of problems you want to solve. There's any kind of problem you want. One of the things I found annoying, I have a kid, and I always, you know, noticed that everybody would ask him, so what are you going to be when you grow up? You know, this question. But they provided no context. So I'm going to just walk you through a couple of different environments so you can think about the kinds of places that you might be interested in. Has anybody heard of Epic?
Yeah.
Yeah? So Epic is literally the company that probably, they develop software. So they're a technology company.
Yeah.
Their software is used to run hospitals. And so probably about 50% of the hospitals in the world use this software. So they're a pretty big company. And it's just an example. So they're out in near Madison, Wisconsin, and they just have this crazy campus. Literally, like the founder built like they have a recreation of the Harry Potter library, right? I mean, it's just crazy. Again, we don't need to get into detail, but like just think about it, right? These are some of the things that you could think about as you're looking for, you know, where you're going to go next. So that's one. Google, huge. multinational all over the world. I have a bunch of friends that work at Google. They're very happy with Google. Think about whether that's an environment you're interested in. If it is, go look at the jobs that are on their website and see if you're building those skills. Government and law, there's an amazing, the FBI has a huge crime lab here. It's growing. There's a pretty big group over in Stennis. So there is the spay war here. There's jobs here to do this. There's quite a bit of support. And again, is this an environment that you're going to like, right? If you like structure, if you like to kind of know when you're going to work and what you'll be doing, you might love working in a government environment. I mean, just think about the kind of environment that you thrive in. VTO is a small company. I'm just going to give you a taste of this. I'm not going to watch the full video, but just another example of where you can go with this skill. And all this information is online. This is just right off YouTube. What they do is a lot of research and development. So they're doing really cutting edge work on drone forensics right now. Can you hear that?
Up in the Colorado Rockies. It's a beautiful place, isn't it? Well, it just happens to also be the perfect place for VTO to conduct our drone research. VTO Labs is a technology firm conducting leading-edge digital forensic research and providing education for government agencies, law enforcement, academia, and Fortune 500 companies. Our entrepreneurial culture and collaborative atmosphere creates a rich environment for creativity and innovation. So what are we doing at the ranch? We are out at the ranch where we fly our drones. We've brought 43 different models of drones with us to fly this week. We have about 120 flights where the aircraft is flying by itself to put sample data onto the devices. After we do these sample test flights, we will then be adding data as payloads onto the devices. We'll also be doing a drone swarm where we'll have 14 aircraft in the air at the same time. This is a great example of looking at the technology. We're just walking through this pasture right now and it's following us as we come out here. So the drone is circling us as we continue to move. Even if we did evasive maneuvers, it would follow us out here in the field.
The drones we buy are brand new, so there's nothing on them.
So I bring that to your attention just again, same stuff, totally different application, right? They're looking at IoT stuff. They're looking at artifacts nobody has worked with before. And somebody needs to do that research. So it's just an example of a kind of company that you might think about. Matt Mitchell, another amazing person in the forensics community, and very different approach. Let me just see.
Surveillance. Surveillance. This is kind of like why I don't have anything to hide. I never get that when I'm talking to this community. You can't buy a bag of chips in Harlem without being surveilled. A crypto party is an event where people get together to talk about digital surveillance, digital safety, and what they can do to be safe or mitigate risk. Crypto Harlem is open for all people. All people are welcome. But Crypto Harlem is here for a reason. It's for Black people in Harlem who are over-policed and heavily surveilled, and this is a safe space for us to also learn together and one second to learn from each other.
Harlem is like a cultural hub. It's really important to highlight it, like where it's been and where it's going, including tech in that conversation. That's important about making sure that we can progress. Like it's about disruption.
So again, technology, digital forensics, cyber, totally different way to take that. I mean, you can go anywhere you want with this field. You can do anything you want. It used to be, you know, when my mom went to school, it was like, you can be a teacher or a nurse. And that was it, really. I mean, that was like her choice. For me, I didn't see a lot of jobs I wanted, so I've had to create my jobs. I mean, I've built my own companies. I've done that. I did that because I wanted to be here in New Orleans, because I wanted flexibility. I wanted to be able to wear hats to work. I mean, you know, these may be strange reasons, but they're my reasons, right? This is why I built my own companies, because nobody was doing the kind of work that I wanted to do. So I built my companies. But there are a ton of opportunities, and I just encourage you, as you're working in this field, to figure out what you love doing, what you're good at, and then go figure out how you're going to develop those skills and turn that into something that you love that also benefits the world, because boy, oh boy, does the world need technology. This is my favorite clip of what cybersecurity looks like in TV. Sorry, the sound isn't working. It doesn't really matter. But I literally have friends who serve as technology experts for a film. Like, that's all they do. This is what technology works like. I mean, what a cool application of understanding technology, right? They're cybersecurity experts. You know, they're not working. I don't think they paid any technology experts to do this one, but Mr. Robot is right on point. So anyway, so again, I just encourage you to really think about it. Use these websites. I don't know if you've been to Indeed.com, but you should be on here. You should be looking at this. You should be figuring out, hey, what can I do? It'll show you. It'll show you what you can type in anything here, and it'll show you what jobs are available, what they're looking for, what they need, what the parameters are, all of those things. You start thinking about that. I don't know. And see if there's companies here, see if they have internships open. See if you can go in the summer. See if you can start getting experience. See if you can go in and do mock interviews. I mean, these are the sorts of things that you can do now that will serve you. And then just a few more questions, like how much money do you want to make? Where do you want to live? Is any of this stuff making sense? You guys are being so quiet. This is just about my last slide. So again, money, you know, doesn't automatically make anyone happy, but I don't think it automatically depressed anyone either. So, you know what the salary is. That'll help you figure it out. Do you want to go on when you finish Delgado? Do you want to keep going? Do you need a certificate? I mean, this is on you, right? This is how much money do you want to make, and you put it out there. Be clear about that, and start getting some information. What is it worth? And when you look at moving elsewhere, figure out how much the cost of living is going to be. You know, there's some pretty high-paying jobs out in San Francisco, but just look up rent before you move. All right, so this is it. That's my point. My point is that this is an amazing field, technology, information assurance. I mean, you can work in literally any business sector anywhere in the world. And that's the good and the bad. So like, if you haven't figured it out, nobody's expecting you to figure it out yet, but there's a lot of information here. And I'll make this presentation available, and you can call me. I am local. I did put my cards up here. I do offer internships when I can. And I'm ready for questions. So, yes, sir.
Do you have certifications, and what are your college degrees and everything?
What are my college degrees? So when I graduated from college, there was no really such thing as digital forensics and cybersecurity. I will not tell you how old I am, but I will say that there really was no area of expertise in this. So I have been in this field. The way that I have gotten my expertise is by going to events, taking training, going online, and I would love to have gone back and gotten a degree. I literally work 20 hours a day. And so what I do is I get that added I'm constantly doing training, and I'm doing training around, like, for example, I use some very sophisticated forensics tools, and so certified on those tools. Does that make sense? But I would say that I probably spend 10 hours a week doing continuing education on my own. It's an area that, and it's fascinating. There's just tons of stuff. So did I answer your question? Mm-hmm. Okay, you have a question, I think, too. Yes.
Me?
I thought so. No?
Okay, well, I didn't know, I couldn't tell whether you're, anyway. So this professional development, because my question was kind of along the same lines as his. What are those, that professional development, what are those forensics tools that you're actually using that you're getting, that you have those?
Yeah, so those have changed over the course, again, I've been in this space for a while. So the tools that I'm currently using that I like the best, like this minute, are X-rays and magnet forensics. I like those a lot because magnet in particular will support Mac, PC, and mobile devices, which are really important. But again, the tools will change. So really, it's super important to understand the fundamentals, understand why it's so important to handle evidence properly, how to, if you're going to get into forensics, how to think about that. And then those tools will come because they will change. Again, if you learn how to learn, and you get into an organization and you are of value to that organization, they will support you to get the tools and the certifications that you need. Yes.
All right, so traditional 3 questions I'm going to shoot to you, especially since you said when you graduated, there was no degree in this. So I just want you to think 3-parter. Who were you 3 months after you graduated high school? Not even going into college yet. Like, kind of where were you in that whole thinking of your career thing, or not? Where are you now, and where do you see yourself going with this in 5 years?
So I was really bored in high school, and because I was really bored, I actually, I would have these really random things. This is just, I'm just being dead honest here. So, some of the tests I would take, I would totally flatline on the tests, and it would be like, you're basically like I don't know, what are they calling us now, libtards? And then I would retake the test, and it would actually be like, oh, actually you're on the college level, like you're just bored. And so I finished college by coming to a community college. I actually went into community college. I learned how to study. I learned how to pay attention. I learned what I was interested in, and then I went on to a 4-year school and got money to do that. That was my path. I really believe in the community college. It gives you some more foundation. It's a little bit more comfortable, and for me, it really allowed me. I was raised by a single mom. We didn't have a lot of money. We were living in a fairly rural area, and it really gave me the confidence that I needed to really go on and excel and get some funding to go on with my education. Did I answer your question?
Well, 5 years from now, where do you see yourself going?
Yeah, so finally, I am not just founding companies and figuring out what I want to do after I've been in. So currently, what's really important to me is community and expanding the number of people in this space, expanding the number of women and other represented populations. And so I am working on Cybersleuth, and I'm working on taking that internationally, training people, helping them improve their digital hygiene and become better digital citizens. And so that's really where I hope to be in 5 years. I hope to be teaching information privacy on a global level.
Earlier you said some of the jobs that you've done was one was working with the government.
Yes.
What was your pros and cons? Like, what did you like and what didn't you like about working for the government?
Yeah. Okay. So what were the pros and cons of working for the government? So I knew I was getting a paycheck. That was great, and I knew where I was showing up to work. That was great. I loved that. It was fairly so. What I was doing was I was working for the Department of Information Services out in Washington State, and at that time, literally, I feel so. It's so hard to explain some of this, but at that time, it was one of the first states to actually allow online transactions. This is right. So there was a time when being able to buy your fishing license online, this was a really big deal. That's the kind of stuff I was helping. So I was working in a government agency, and they had the resources to do some of these kinds of things. So I was working in technology. I was helping them. Washington State is really divided by this huge set of mountains that makes it really hard to travel in the winter because it snows. I know it's hard to visualize, but yes, it just literally shuts down the state. It's a really kind of like we're sort of a north-south state. That's the east-west state. And so we were doing training across borders. So I liked the resources. I liked some of the stability. And I actually got to flourish because I was working in this department where we were allowed to do some of these really innovative, kind of cutting edge, brand new things. But when you work for a startup, you don't necessarily know that they're gonna be able to make payroll next week, always, right? I was pretty sure they were gonna be able to make payroll. Did that help?
Yes.
Yes.
With this question, I may show my age or ignorance or a combination of both. Okay. With the way technology is and how advanced and all the enhancements and all this that you're talking about, and you even said earlier that many large corporations are now building in the security. Okay. Why are we hearing about and the frequency of all the hacking? Our state government was a month or so ago, and a few weeks ago our city, and last week was the convention center. What is that? Because they've not proactively built it in, or is it why are we hearing it?
How much time do we have?
No, it's 50 words or less.
Wexford can do that, but there's a couple things. So one of them is that, we have gone from, in our lifetime, right? Our lifetime, I mean, literally, here, let me do show and tell. So when IBM came out with the first mainframes, that's when I was in school, right about your age, right about then. Literally a computer would take up a room. And now this has got more storage space than my computer, which is a pain in the ass because it keeps trying to get me to upload it to the cloud, and I won't refuse to do that. But so it's training and awareness. Okay. So literally, if you look, and it's so frustrating, if you look at what the cause is, 70% of them, 70% is like bad password security, which is like every cyber talk you have ever heard starts with. And here's how we buy it, here's how we build a good password. But like somewhere there is a password that's like admin 123. I have never, I have done some pretty large investigations, and like, I don't think I've ever done one that didn't have admin 123 somewhere in the list, right? It's, and part of that is that, from a budgetary standpoint, it's hard to get approval financially to, for something that doesn't exist. Right, like that preventative medicine is like difficult. It's a more difficult sell. That's part of it, but it's really training and awareness. Like that.
They didn't know how to finance what they didn't know was going to happen. Right?
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
The state, the city, and
but 90% of that.
How do we finance something that we don't know what's going to happen?
So that's a huge chunk of it.
Yeah.
And then now, at least now in my lifetime since I've been working on this, it used to be that, you think of hackers and you sort of think of like the guy that they hide in the server room that they don't bring out, right? At least now, at least now we have a seat at the table, right? Watch the IT crowd where it's recorded, and those guys are in the basement, right? But now, at least you have a seat at the table. So it's improving. But anytime you have connectivity, you have vulnerability, right? Anytime, and so who's willingly volunteering to stop using email and technology? No one. So the point is that all of you, if you can learn cybersecurity and bring that in, that's needed everywhere you go. And if you can come and bring that skill, I don't care if you're working at a coffee shop, or a university, or wherever you're working, that's needed. It's really needed. And helping teach other people what that means and what that looks like. So did that answer your question, Connor? We can talk after if you want. If you want some more code, we can talk after.
I think you did a good job of explaining sort of the personal journey to figuring out like where you want to work and matching that up with the jobs that are out there. The one thing that I'm wondering, because like what Jenny brought up and what we're talking about is like technology is changing so rapidly. So where do you see this field going? So if someone in the room is in their first year, they got another 2 years before they're done, or another year before they're done, what should they sort of be focusing on? Like, what are the trends, I guess, is the simple question in this field that maybe they should be focusing on that will kind of give them the edge or the niche things they should focus on that would maybe make their resume stand out from other resumes?
So I will say that it will go back to the setting, which is why I talked so much about the setting of where you're going to be and what kind of companies you want to work for, because it changes. Mm-hmm. So the software, is it specific to them? The environments are specific to them. But a lot, just in general, this whole idea of centralized computing, cloud infrastructure, AWS, and just security in general are huge trends, and just understanding like what that means, like how, again, it's like how does that become relevant for you, right? Where do you use technology? How is it relevant to you? And when you go in and you start looking for places to work, understanding what technology they're using. How are you going to help them solve their problems, right? What technology is it? How is that evolving? There's, you know, the .NETs and the Cisco, I mean, there's great big huge things like that in the world. But then it'll get more industry specific. So understanding that we started out with this, we're completely dependent and interconnected with technology. So how do we solve that problem? How do we stay online and stay secure?
So I think maybe what you're saying is get a foundation in computers or programming or network technology, because when you go out into the working world, it's going to be so specialized in where you go that you're going to learn on the job, and you're going to learn from professional development after you get the foundation in computers.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, so once you have that foundation, once you've learned how to learn, right? Because it's all kind of the same stuff, right? I mean, it's still basically the same thing. Once you figure out how to do one software program, it's like a language. It's like any language. The next one's going to be easier if you figure out where that goes, and then just seeing how it fits. And really going, okay, what do you love? Do you want to work with people? Do you want to be, you know, in the closet with the computer all day long? Like, what do you want, right? Because there's a ton of place. So really, for us, it's so pervasive. There's so many jobs that if you really want to stand out, you need to have that foundation, and then you need to figure out where you want to specialize. Come on, what else? Who else? Yes.
So, I know you have to be like 100% looking past the horizon right now. And you've seen that they've demonstrated that you can do quantum computing on silicon chips.
Yes.
And that's going to make 256 grade encryption look like admin 123 pretty soon. So how is that fitting into like your future plan?
So, I mean, good and bad, right? So it totally depends, right? If you're working for law enforcement, that sucks. And I have had many situations where there has been a bad, like truly bad actor, and you know, there's encryption. It's incredibly frustrating. It's incredibly heartbreaking to be in that situation. On the flip side, you know, I'm a little hesitant to tell you how much information is stored here, and that you would really, really like encryption, and privacy is important, and it should be a digital right. Like, this is a right that is sort of being eroded very quickly. And so that is to say that most people who are in tech are a little schizophrenic if they're paying attention. Because for every digital artifact that has allowed me to, you know, get really solid evidence in case, like, I'm also very keen about preserving, you know, our privacy and our rights. So it goes both ways. Like, right now, encryption is the elephant in the room, right? 9 times out of 10, though, I mean, some of it comes out of the box, but like, it's shocking who doesn't encrypt stuff, right? Like back to your question back there, you know, 2 or 3 of like the hugest hacks was because people they weren't even using they weren't even using encryption. So, you know.
So, I mean, are you looking at like those quantum computing capabilities that are coming up on the horizon right now in regards to this?
Personally?
Yeah.
I mean, so personally, I, you know, have run a highly specialized consulting firm. So I could rent space on, you know, IBM is renting space on their huge computers.
Right.
In the industry, like, when you walked, if any of you came in early, I was on the phone. I was on a conference call for the digital forensics research workshop that I run. We're absolutely like looking at that, like, absolutely, and it changes, but it's just like, you can't be scared of it because it's just constantly changing, right? It's just constantly, it's just like a new problem you're going to figure out how to solve. And so once you start you know, working on the solution. It's just is like one more piece of the
Do you
puzzle.
think that you can find a solution for it without having hands-on like a quantum computing platform yourself? Is there a way to, I guess?
No, it goes back to access, right? Like it's a totally different thing. Like if I want something versus like if the NSA wants something, that's a totally different, you know, it's totally different. It's always going to be like that.
Right.
It's access to technology. So, I mean, it just depends on who's asking. Does that make sense?
Well, I'm trying to figure out, like, if we don't, like, so they're obviously already making quantum computers smaller and smaller, because, you know, when they first started, it was pretty much a room, and it had giant generators and everything else, because it took so much power and all that, but as it gets smaller and smaller, obviously, it's going to eventually get to us, but how do we start planning for, like, the security issues and stuff like that now with the computers we have and the knowledge we have?
Well, you know, whether we'll learn from our lessons is an ongoing question. I'm not gonna hazard an opinion on that. Does anybody else have questions? Not a lot. All right. Well, I've certainly enjoyed being here, and I hope I was able to give at least some nugget that you can take away. If, again, I'll make the presentation available to you if you're interested, and feel free to reach out. And if anybody's interested in any of my projects, looking for internships or whatever, let me know. All right?
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I'm just gonna give you a little water. And some water to also. I know you have a lot of water, but.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me. And again, I'm very encouraged by, you know, what's going on here at Delgado. There's some really great programs here, and I'm glad you're taking advantage of those. So, yeah.
Thank you. And thank you all for all coming and there's a couple of them.
And I'll be here if anybody wants to come see me after. I'll be here for a bit. I can stick around. And there's chocolate. Yeah. What's your name? Jeremy. Yeah, that's one of my favorite names. When I'm asked to.
Do you go to many of them?
I do. Any ones that I can.